Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Hannah if you don't know me already, and today we're going to be talking about my top favorite books of all time. I feel like this is going to be a good video whether you're new to reading and just looking for books to start with, or whether you already read a lot and you're just looking for some new recommendations. You can find a list of all these books on my Goodreads, which I'll link below. If you don't know what Goodreads is, it's basically just like a social media platform for readers. You basically just get to post about the current book you're reading, and then you also get to organize the books that you've read or want to read by putting them in different lists. You have like a want to read list, you also have a read list, and then you also have a favorites list. So these are all books that are in my favorites list on my Goodreads account, so you can go check that out if you want. I'll link it below. One thing that I struggle with is I feel like anytime I try to describe a book to the camera, or even like to Andrew, my husband, when I'm trying to talk to him about a book that I'm currently reading, I feel like I always butcher the description of it or what's happening in the book, and I don't know why. I think I always just have so many thoughts going on about whatever I'm reading or whatever I read that they're just all like scrambled, and then trying to like put them in a proper order of like the events that happened or how the story should be told or how it should be described. It's just a jumbled mess up here. So how this is going to work is I'm going to tell you one of my favorite books, and then I'm going to read you the description of it on Goodreads, and then after that I'll give you all my thoughts and why it's my favorite, why I loved it so much. So that's going to be the order of things, and I'm excited to get started. Book number one on my favorites list is a book called I Fell in Love with Hope by Lankali, I think is how you say her name. I'm gonna read you the description of it from Goodreads. Against the unforgiving landscape of the hospital, I fell in love with a mischievous, sun-eyed boy who became my only joy in that desolate place. That's what made it all the more soul-crushing when he committed suicide in front of me. Since then, I've sworn never to love anyone again, with 3 exceptions. My friends, Sony, Neo, and Kor, a little gang of rebellious, dying kids. Sony leads the charge with the air of freedom and only one lung to breathe it. Neo, a bad-tempered and wheelchaired writer, keeps track of our greatest deeds, from stealing to terrorizing our nurse. Kor is the beautiful boy, the muscle, the gentle giant with a failing heart. Before death inevitably knocks down our doors, my thieves and I have one last heist planned. A great escape that will take us far from abusive parents, crippling loss, and the realities of our diseases. So what happens when someone else walks through the door? What happens when a girl joins our party and renders me speechless with her mischievous smile? What happens when she has the sun in her eyes, and as terrified as I am to lose again, I start to fall? I loved this story for a lot of reasons, but I would say the top 2 reasons I loved this story so much was because of the writing. The author's writing style is like, if I could read that in every book ever, I would choose it every time. I thought her writing is just so beautiful. It's so elegant, so graceful, and it stirs so many emotions within your soul that you're just like, I don't even know how to feel, because I feel so much. And that's really hard for a writer to make me feel that way, and she did it like from page 1. I think the second reason I loved it so much was because of the overall story. It's not like anything I've ever read before, ever. I've never read a book that takes place in a hospital. It follows such a deep and genuine friendship between all these characters, and you grow so deeply attached to every single one. So as the story continues and their diseases keep hurting them in different ways and causing things to happen that you wish would just stop, you feel so many emotions towards these characters. I just felt so connected to them. I don't really know how else to say it. I was just like, when their hearts would break, my heart would break. When they felt joy, I felt joy. It was literally just like that. It just shows the power of relationships and how important human connection is with each other, and that's something I can certainly appreciate in a book, and I certainly did appreciate in this book. Book 2 on my favorites list is a book called The Snow Child. Just like the other book, I'm going to read you the description on Goodreads, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on it. Alaska, 1920. A brutal place to homestead, and especially tough for recent arrivals Jack and Mabel. Childless, they are drifting apart. He, breaking under the weight of the work on the farm, she crumbling from the loneliness and despair. In a moment of levity during the season's first snowfall, they build a child out of snow. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they glimpse a young blonde-haired girl running through the trees. This little girl, who calls herself Faina, seems to be a child of the woods. She hunts with a red fox at her side, skims lightly across the snow, and somehow survives alone in the Alaskan wilderness. As Jack and Mabel struggle to understand this child who could have stepped from the pages of a fairy tale, they come to love her as their own daughter. But in this beautiful, violent place, things are rarely as they appear, and what they eventually learn about Faina will transform them all. I loved this book for a lot of reasons again, but I would say the main reason was because I felt like I was reading a fairy tale. What is said in the description about how Faina feels like she is a character, a little girl stepped out of a fairy tale, yes, that is how I felt reading about her character and this story overall. There was a huge theme in this book about how things aren't always as they might seem, and also learning to appreciate and be so thankful for things you have because they can be taken away at any point. And that was a huge theme throughout this book specifically, and the way the author conveyed that to the readers, to her audience, was done in such a beautiful and elegant way. I was deeply moved by this story. I felt like I was reading an adult fairy tale that just stirred up so many emotions. And I don't say adult fairy tale because it's inappropriate in any sense. I just say an adult fairy tale because it deals with themes so heavy and things that kids wouldn't get. I gave it 5 stars as soon as I finished it because it was just perfect. Next up on my list is a book called Where She Went by Gail Forman. This is the second book in the If I Stay duology. Her and her boyfriend end up splitting. He is a singer artist on the road, and she is a music student at Juilliard. They somehow both meet up again through fate in New York City, and they explore the city together and open their hearts to love with each other again. The main boy love interest in this book is a musician, so throughout this entire story he's writing lyrics to songs. This was the first book where you got to see his writing process. You got to see the songs he was writing and the lyrics he was writing for them, and I fell in love with that. I also thought the romance was very cute, very wholesome. There was nothing bad in it that I remember. When I say bad, I just mean there was no like sexual content. I think it was all just very innocent romance, and I can always appreciate when an author is able to do that in a good, innocent, friendly, but still very cute way. Next up on this list is a book called Hinds Feet on High Places. This is the only Christian book on this list. I'll read you the description of it just so I don't butcher it, because I think I would butcher it if I tried to tell you what it was about. Actually, I just went on Goodreads and I looked up the description of this book, and I felt like it actually wasn't a very good description of the story and the plot, so I'm gonna try my best to describe it to you. This is a story about a main character whose name is Much Afraid. Much Afraid is exactly what her name is. She's much afraid, very afraid of everything. She has so many insecurities, so many fears, so many just like, she just lives in a state of fear. Throughout this story, she is on a journey to persevere and to overcome all of her fears and insecurities. She goes through this journey, she's climbing this mountain, and along this mountain, other characters come into play. Characters like fear, anxiety. Every character in this book represents an emotion. On this side, you have fear and anxiety and anger, all telling her other things like, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, that's why this happened to you, that's why these people abandoned you. And on this side, you have love, peace, and joy saying, no, it was never your fault, you're made for so much more, you are good enough. And they're both battling over her mind, spirit, and soul. It's just her journey as she tries to figure out what path she wants to take and what she's going to tell herself, therefore what she's going to believe about herself. Even the way I described it, I feel like you would think that this is almost like a child's book, and it almost comes across that way, but it's not. It deals with pretty deep themes that if you were a child reading this, you just wouldn't catch on to it. I will speak for myself. I have definitely dealt with a lot of insecurity and fear in my life. Definitely a lot of insecurities especially. The reason I loved it so much was because it showed you exactly how different emotions talk to you in your deepest insecurity. So I would read this book and I would see how anxiety was talking to Much Afraid when she was fearful. And then I could look at that and connect it in my own life and be like, when I had this fear and then this thought crept into my mind, that was just anxiety trying to take over my mind and make me believe things that aren't true. And in the same way, I could learn to train my thoughts to now be like, okay, anxiety's trying to say this, well, love says this, and joy says this, and peace and patience says this. It was very revealing for me. Next up on this list is a book called 100 Poems to Break Your Heart. This book, basically, it gives you 100 poems and it breaks down each poem. It breaks down each poem and tells you exactly why it was written the way it was, why the author chose certain words instead of others. I was reading some of these poems in like the first few chapters and I was like, I don't get it. Like I'm trying to understand what they were trying to convey, but I just don't get it. And I think poems can do that to you sometimes because poems are meant to be relatable to everyone. You're supposed to read between the lines with them. It's not supposed to usually be so upfront. There's supposed to be some kind of mystery so that you can apply that poem to your own life in whatever way it fits you. The way that the person broke down and explained why certain words were chosen, why they said this, and the emotions that they were trying to convey through the poem really hit me. I thought it was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I love writing poetry sometimes in my free time, so this was very fun for me to read. It was definitely more of a fun read and something that taught me a lot about poetry and poems and gave me a new appreciation for the art. Next up on this list is a book called Lightlark. I love this book. Welcome to the Centennial. Every 100 years, the island of Lightlark appears to host the Centennial, a deadly game that only the rulers of 6 realms are invited to play. The invitation is a summons, a call to embrace victory and ruin and blood. The Centennial offers the 6 rulers one final chance to break the curses that have plagued their realms for centuries. Each ruler has something to hide. Each realm's curse is uniquely wicked. To destroy the curses, one ruler must die. Isla, I don't know how you pronounce her name. I've been saying Isla. I don't know if that's right though. Isla Crown is the young ruler of the Wildlands, a realm of temptresses cursed to kill anyone that they fall in love with. They are feared and despised and are counting on Isla to end their suffering by succeeding at the Centennial. To survive, Isla must lie, cheat, betray, even as love complicates things. That's basically the description of it. I loved this book for many reasons, but especially because I loved the characters and I thought it was so fun. It was like if The Hunger Games was a fantasy book with magic and powers. This book also had my favorite trope, which is a love triangle trope, and the love triangle in this book eats. It eats and leaves no crumbs. I loved the romance in this book. It's definitely a romance. See, there's lots of action, lots of romance, lots of politics, but in the best way. I thought it was so fun. I loved the writing. There's a crazy plot twist that happens that I did not see coming. I've seen some people review this book and say they saw it coming. I don't know how. I think I read this book in like 2 days. I ran through it because I was having so much fun. I just couldn't put it down. I thought it was such a fun read overall. The plot is so interesting. The characters and romance. Chef's kiss. I couldn't ask for anything more in this book. We're almost done. We only have like maybe 2 or 3 books left on this list, I think. The next book though is called Daughter of No Worlds. This is another fantasy book and I'm gonna read you the description. A former slave fighting for justice, a reclusive warrior who no longer believes that it exists, and a dark magic that will entangle their fates. Ripped from a forgotten homeland as a child, Tisana learned how to survive with nothing but a sharp wit and touch of magic. But the night she tries to buy her freedom, she barely escapes with her life. Desperate to save the best friend she left behind, Tisana journeys to the Orders, the most powerful organizations of magic wielders in the world. But to join their ranks, she must complete an apprenticeship with Maxentarius, our handsome and reclusive fire wielder who despises the Orders. The Order's intentions are cryptic, and Tasana must prove herself under the great threat of looming war. But even more dangerous are her growing feelings for Max. That the bloody past he wants to forget may be the key to her future, or the downfall of them both. But Tasana will stop at nothing to save those she abandoned, even if it means gambling in the Order's deadly games, even if it means sacrificing her heart, even if it means wielding death itself. This is a book in a series. I've only read books 1 and 2, and I loved them both, but book 1 especially has my heart. It's a fantasy with romance in it. I would say the romance in this book is definitely on the back burner. It's definitely like a more of a subplot, but the scraps of romance you do get in this book are so good. The main plot of this book is Tasana trying to go back and free her friends who are still slaves after she escaped. I loved this book. I thought it was written beautifully. Again, beautiful writing will get me every single time. I loved the magic in this book. The magic was so cool. The way the magic worked, and then Tasana and Max's powers individually were so interesting and cool to see them mesh them together. There's also a third darker force in this book. When I say darker, I just mean like more magical and powerful force in this book that I thought was so interesting and was definitely a part of the plot that I think it might have low-key carried the plot. Next up on this list is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I feel like everyone knows what this book is about, so I'm not too concerned with telling you, but I'll give you a brief rundown. Sunrise on the Reaping is a book in the Hunger Games series. It follows Haymitch's games though, so he competes in the 50th Hunger Games. He wins his, obviously, he becomes a mentor to Katniss and Peeta, the ones we love so much. It goes back in time to his games and what happened to him, how his games were. I loved this book for a lot of reasons. One of those main reasons was because I love how she connected this book so flawlessly to the rest of the books in the series. The little connections that she did that connected it to the original Hunger Games trilogy, so good. She did it so brilliantly. There were characters in the original Hunger Games trilogy that you now read and learn about in this book, and I thought that was so fun. I think she connected everything so well. Not only did she connect everything so well to the original trilogy though, the story itself, his games were so, I hate to say entertaining to read about, because then I feel like someone on the Capitol who's like watching them and being like, this is so entertaining to watch people kill each other, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but it was so interesting and it was so entertaining. I'll just say it that way. His games were so intense. I felt so many emotions during it. I was literally like heartbroken one moment and then cheering the next moment, and I loved it. This book was perfect. It was an immediate 5 stars. I think it's better than any book in the original Hunger Games trilogy, which is saying something because I love that series. You should read it. I think everyone should read the Hunger Games series. I think it's amazing, the entire series, but especially this book. The last books, I'm gonna say books because it's book 2 and 3 in a trilogy. Second and third books in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So book 2 is called A Ballad of Never After, and then book 3 is called A Curse for True Love. These books ate. I'm just gonna say that. This entire book series ate and left 0 crumbs on the floor. Book 1 was super good, very, very good. I loved it. But book 2 hit different. The romance in book 2 hit different. I put book 2 on my favorites list mainly because of the romance and just how good she wrote the romance. And book 3 in the trilogy is also on my favorites list because I felt like it was the perfect conclusion for the book series. I know some people debate that. Some people don't like how she ended the book series, or maybe they just wish that there was more because it was so good. But I've heard some people say that they wish it was just a little bit different. I totally disagree. I think she ended this book series perfectly. I think it was the perfect ending to everything that happened throughout books 1, 2, and even like the third one. It ate and left 0 crumbs. The romance is so good. I think this is probably the best romance in a book I've ever read before, ever. And that's saying something because I've read a lot of romance books. I will recommend this book series until I die. Okay, that is all the books on my favorites list. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you did. And let me know if you've ever read any of these books, because that would be fun to hear about if you liked them as much as I did, or if you thought I'm wrong in maybe one of the opinions I gave. That would be fun to hear about too. So don't be shy, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Also, thanks for watching. Bye!